Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing 3 dinners from our meal plan last week as well as a dessert. So on this first night here I made a meatball stir fry. I'm using the Adele's chicken meatballs from Costco and the stir fry mix is from Walmart. And I got the recipe from the Adele's website. I'll leave the link in the description box below. So first I'm just making the sauce for the stir fry, which is soy sauce, white wine vinegar, sugar, and ginger. And then I'm just going to whisk that up and set it aside and start sauteing my meatballs. For the meatballs, I'm just adding a little avocado oil into a skillet, and then I start adding in all the meatballs. And as you'll see later on in the clips, I ended up using 2 skillets instead of 1 because I used a Costco-sized meatball mix. I used all of the meatballs, so I had way too much for 1 skillet. So but yeah, I'm adding all the meatballs, sauteing that for about 3 minutes or so, and then I add in some garlic and chopped onion. Here is me adding the stir fry mix and then quickly realizing I need 2 pans for this. So once I put everything into 2 separate pans, I divided up the soy sauce into each one and brought both of those to a boil. Once they boiled, I just let it simmer, covered up for about 5 to 10 minutes, just until the vegetables were tender. On this next night, I made beef enchiladas with red sauce, and I'm not even sure where I got this recipe originally, but I've been making it for years and years and years, and it's really good. So I will leave the recipe I use in the description box below, but first you just start out with browning your ground beef, and once you brown the ground beef, you just drain the grease and put the ground beef back into the skillet. Once you do that, you just add up a chopped onion, add in a chopped onion, add some shredded cheese, parsley, salt and pepper, and mix that around, and then you just cover it and set it to the side off the heat. So once you set the meat aside, you start working on your red sauce. For the sauce, it's just a can of tomato sauce, some water, a chopped green pepper, and then chili powder, oregano, cumin, and garlic. I've also added jalapeños sometimes, which, I mean, that's optional. And then you just bring that to a boil and then let it simmer uncovered for 5 minutes. Before rolling the enchiladas, I just put some corn tortillas on a plate and then put a damp paper towel over top and microwave it for about 20 to 30 seconds. And now I'm just going to dip each tortilla into the sauce on both sides and then fill it with the ground beef mixture and then roll it up and just put it into a baking dish. With the leftover sauce and the leftover ground beef, if there is any, sometimes there's not, sometimes there is, I just spread that over the top of the enchiladas, and then I sprinkle some cheese on top as well as crumble some queso fresco cheese. I don't always but if I have it in the refrigerator, then I use it. And this time I did. So yeah, I just sprinkle that over top, and then I put it in the oven uncovered at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes or so. You can go a little longer or even broil it, which we do sometimes if you want to crisp up the corn tortillas. On this third night from our meal plan last week, we made beef stew with some soda bread on the side. So for the beef stew, I just chopped up a chuck roast and browned that into the skillet before I put it into the crock pot. And with the juices that were left over from the chuck roast, I just put that back on the stovetop with the heat off, and I added a Guinness beer as well as some beef broth. And I just left it alone on the stovetop while I added everything else. And then I add the beer broth mixture last on top of everything. So now I'm just adding some diced up parsnips, some carrots, some potatoes, and then onion, garlic, sage, a beef bouillon base, and then tomato paste. And then I'm gonna add that beer mixture into the crock pot with everything, mix that around, and then put the lid on and cook it low for about 7 to 7.5 hours. Before the beef stew's done, I start making my soda bread, and for this you just want to preheat your oven to 400 degrees and then start with the bread mixture. And for this you just need 2 bowls. In one bowl you're going to whisk buttermilk and molasses together. And then in your other bowl, you're going to mix whole wheat flour with all-purpose flour, as well as just some salt, baking soda, and then when you go to add your butter, you're going to pinch that into the flour with your fingers until you can't see the butter anymore. And then you just mix the wet mixture into the dry mixture and mix that together real good until you can't really see the flour anymore. And then you kind of just form it into the loaf pan with your fingers and bake it for about 45 minutes at 400 degrees. And before you bake it, I know it looks crazy, like it's not going to turn out good, but it comes out perfectly. It looks perfect and tastes perfect. It's seriously such a good bread. So in addition to me sharing 3 of the meals from our meal plan last week, I'm also going to be sharing a pumpkin Nutella bread that I made as well. To do this, you just mix together flour, sugar, baking soda, baking powder, salt, nutmeg, cinnamon, and cloves. Just whisk that together until it's mixed nicely.
This is a good day as any to start the...
Once you mix everything together, you're just going to make a well right in the middle of everything. And you're going to put your eggs, oil, milk, vanilla, and pumpkin puree into that. And then you're going to whisk that together for about 30 seconds or so. And just fold everything into the wet mixture. So mix the dry into the wet. And then you're going to just take your loaf pan and dump half of that into the pan. And then you're going to melt some Nutella and then swirl in on top of the pumpkin, and then do the remaining half of the pumpkin mixture on the loaf pan as well with more Nutella. Swirl it, and then you're just going to bake that in the oven for about an hour or so.
This morning has so clear a light as any to see the horizon and the far. Excuses were 2 for a penny, but they've all gone out the window of this car. And when I feel the wind on my face, all that ever was is a rise. Today and not tomorrow, there's no time to borrow. Today
Okay, so that wraps up this week's What's for Dinner. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope, as always, you consider coming back next week for another What's for Dinner video.